Let me tell you something that happened to a man named Robert, a 67-year-old retired school teacher from Ohio. He noticed a tiny little crack in his living room wall one Tuesday morning. It was thin as a hair. He thought, it's nothing. Old house, old walls. He ignored it. He painted over it. He forgot about it. 6 months later, that same crack had spread across his entire wall like a spider web. His door wouldn't close properly anymore, his window frames were warping, and when a structural inspector finally came to his home, the man gave Robert a number that nearly made him fall off his chair: $14,000 in foundation and wall damage, all because of one tiny crack he ignored on a Tuesday morning. Now, here's the thing. Robert is not alone. Millions of homeowners across America, especially those who have lived in their homes for 20, 30, even 40 years, wake up one day and realize those little cracks they brushed off for years have turned into expensive, dangerous nightmares. And the worst part, most of this damage is completely 100% preventable if you know what to look for and what to do about it early. So today, I'm going to walk you through everything. We're talking about the types of cracks you should never ignore, the ones that are actually harmless, and most importantly, the top easy hacks and tips that real professionals use to fix these cracks before they turn into disasters. And trust me, by the time this video is over, you are going to look at your walls in a completely different way. Stay with me, because what I'm about to show you in the next few minutes could save you thousands of dollars. Section 1. Understanding the enemy. What kind of crack are you dealing with? Before you grab any filler or call any contractor, you need to understand one critical thing. Not all cracks are created equal. Some cracks are just cosmetic. Others are screaming at you that something serious is going wrong inside your walls or foundation. Knowing the difference is the first and most powerful step you can take. Let's start with the cracks that are generally considered normal. Hairline cracks, those super thin, barely there lines that appear in drywall or plaster. These usually happen because of seasonal changes. When temperatures rise and fall, your home's materials expand and contract. This is completely natural. These hairline cracks, especially when they're horizontal and perfectly straight, are usually just your house breathing. They're not dangerous, but they still need to be fixed before moisture gets in. Now, here's where it gets serious, and I want you to pay close attention to this part. Diagonal cracks, especially ones that run at a 45-degree angle from the corners of your doors and windows, those are warning signs. They often indicate that your foundation is shifting or settling unevenly. This is not something you patch up with a little spackle and forget about. This is your house telling you something is happening underneath. Horizontal cracks in basement walls. This is the one that should make every homeowner stop dead in their tracks. Horizontal cracks, especially in concrete or block basement walls, can indicate serious lateral pressure from the soil outside pushing against your foundation. This is one of the most dangerous types of cracks a home can have. And if you see this in your basement, please do not wait. Get a professional opinion immediately. Stair-step cracks in brick or block walls. These follow the mortar joints and look exactly like stairs going up a wall. They almost always point to foundations settling, and they tend to get worse with time, not better. Now that you know which cracks are dangerous, let me show you something even more important, because in the next section, I'm going to tell you exactly what causes these cracks in the first place. And one of the causes is something almost nobody talks about, something sitting in your own backyard right now. Section 2. What's actually causing your walls to crack? Here's where most people get it completely wrong. They see a crack, they fill it, they move on. But 2 months later, the crack is back, bigger than before. Why? Because they never dealt with the root cause. And if you don't fix the cause, you will be fighting cracks for the rest of your life. The number one cause of wall cracks in American homes, especially older homes, is foundation movement. Over decades, the soil underneath your home shifts. It gets wet, it dries out, it freezes in winter, it thaws in spring. Every single time that soil moves, it puts stress on your foundation, and that stress travels up through your walls like a message, showing up as cracks. The second biggest cause is water damage and moisture infiltration. Water is the silent destroyer of homes. When water gets into your walls through roof leaks, poor drainage, or even high indoor humidity, it weakens the structure from the inside. The wall materials swell, the paint bubbles, and eventually cracks form. And here's the sneaky part. By the time you see the crack, the water damage behind it may be already months old. Poor construction or aging materials is another major cause, and this one hits especially close to home for those of you living in houses built in the 1960s, 70s, or 80s. Back then, certain materials were used that simply weren't built to last 50 years. Old plaster walls, outdated drywall compounds, and inadequate expansion joints all lead to cracking over time. Tree roots. Yes, you read that right. Tree roots are one of the most underestimated causes of wall and foundation cracking. Large trees planted too close to a home will send their roots searching for water, and those roots will grow right up against and sometimes under your foundation, pushing and cracking everything in their path. Scary stuff, right? But here's the good news, and this is the part you've been waiting for. I'm about to show you the actual fixes, real, proven, easy-to-follow hacks and tips that will stop these cracks in their tracks. And the first one starts with something you probably already have in your garage. All right, let's get into the good stuff. This first hack is perfect for hairline cracks and small to medium cracks in drywall, the most common type of crack in American homes. And the best part? The materials cost less than $15 at any hardware store. Here's exactly what you do. First, take a utility knife and carefully widen the crack just slightly, about 1/8 of an inch. I know that sounds backwards. Why would you make it bigger? Because a slightly wider crack holds the repair compound much better than a razor-thin line. Think of it like a groove that the compound can grip onto. Next, apply self-adhesive fiberglass mesh tape directly over the crack. This tape acts as a reinforcement. It keeps the compound from cracking again later. Now apply your first coat of joint compound, also called mud, using a 6-inch putty knife. Spread it smooth, feathering the edges out about 2 inches on either side of the tape. Let this dry completely. Depending on your climate, this can take anywhere from 4 to 24 hours. Don't rush this step. If you apply the next coat before the first one is fully dry, you will get shrinkage cracks and you'll be starting all over again. Once the first coat is dry, apply a second coat and feather it out even wider, about 8 inches this time. Sand it smooth when dry, then prime and paint. When done correctly, this repair is virtually invisible and can last for many, many years. That was the repair, but what if the crack keeps coming back? That means there's something deeper going on, and hack number 2 is specifically designed for that situation. This one is a game changer. Now we're moving into more serious territory, concrete and masonry cracks. If you have cracks in your concrete walls, your garage floor, or your basement, this technique is what the professionals use, and you can absolutely do it yourself. Epoxy injection is exactly what it sounds like. You inject a 2-part epoxy resin deep into the crack, where it fills every tiny void and then hardens into something stronger than the original concrete. This isn't just a surface fix. This is a permanent structural repair. Here's how it works. First, clean the crack thoroughly. Use a wire brush to remove any loose debris, dust, or old paint. The epoxy needs to bond to clean, solid material. Then, drill small injection ports along the length of the crack, about every 8 to 12 inches. These ports are where you'll insert the epoxy nozzle. Mix your 2-part epoxy according to the manufacturer's instructions and inject it slowly into the lowest port first. Keep injecting until you see the epoxy begin to ooze out of the next port above it. That means the section is fully filled. Move up to the next port and repeat. Once the epoxy has cured, usually 24 to 48 hours, it creates an incredibly strong bond that actually makes the repaired area more resistant than the surrounding concrete. This method works beautifully for cracks caused by settling that have since stabilized. However, and this is important, if the crack is still actively moving or growing, epoxy alone won't solve the problem. You need to first address the underlying movement before doing any permanent repair. Speaking of movement, what if your crack isn't in drywall or concrete, but in the exterior brick of your home? That's a whole different situation. And if you ignore exterior brick cracks, you're literally inviting water, insects, and cold air into your home every single day. Here's exactly what to do. Brick walls are built to last generations, but the mortar between the bricks, that mortar has a lifespan, and when it starts cracking, crumbling, or pulling away from the bricks, you have a problem called mortar deterioration, and it needs to be addressed before water gets in and freezes, which will crack your bricks themselves. The fix is called repointing, and it's one of the most satisfying DIY repairs a homeowner can do. Here's what you'll need: a cold chisel, a hammer, a margin trowel, and pre-mixed mortar. That's it. Start by using the cold chisel and hammer to carefully chip out the old, damaged mortar to a depth of about 3/4 of an inch. Be careful not to damage the bricks themselves. Once the old mortar is removed, brush out the joint with a stiff brush to remove all dust and loose material. Dampen the joint slightly with water before applying new mortar. This prevents the bricks from sucking all the moisture out of the new mortar before it can cure properly. Then pack the new mortar in using your margin trowel, working it in firmly so there are no air voids. Tool the joint to match the existing mortar profile, whether that's a concave curve, a flat profile, or a raked profile, so the repair blends in naturally. Keep the repaired area slightly moist for the first 24 hours by misting it with water. This slow curing process makes the mortar much stronger. Done right, a repointing job can last another 25 to 50 years. Okay, so now you know how to fix cracks in drywall, concrete, and brick. But what about plaster walls? If you live in a home built before 1960, there's a very good chance your walls are old-school plaster, and plaster cracks are a completely different beast. Don't go anywhere. Plaster walls are beautiful, durable, and often found in some of the most charming older American homes. But when they crack, most people make a critical mistake. They try to use regular drywall joint compound to fix them, and then they wonder why the repair keeps failing, bubbling, or falling out 6 months later. Here's the secret. Plaster requires plaster. Specifically, you want to use a product like Durabond 90 or a similar setting type compound rather than standard drying type joint compound. Setting compounds chemically harden rather than simply drying out, which gives them far superior bonding strength to plaster substrates. Start by undercutting the crack. Use a can opener or a utility knife to angle the sides of the crack so that it's slightly wider at the back than at the front. This creates a mechanical lock that holds the new plaster in place. Dampen the crack before applying your compound. Then pack the setting compound in firmly, slightly overfilling the crack. For larger plaster repairs, areas where the plaster has completely fallen away from the wall, you'll need to apply the new material in 2 or 3 thin coats, letting each coat partially set before applying the next. Rushing this leads to shrinkage and cracking. The final coat should be finished smooth with a damp sponge rather than sandpaper to avoid creating dust and damaging the surrounding surface. Prime the repaired area with a high-quality bonding primer before painting. This is a step that many DIYers skip, and it always shows because the repair will look different from the surrounding wall, no matter how many coats of paint you apply. You've made it this far, and that tells me you're serious about protecting your home. So let me share with you the single most powerful preventative measure you can take starting today. Something that costs almost nothing, but could save you thousands of dollars in future repairs. This is the one hack most people never think about until it's too late. Here's the truth that most repair videos never tell you. The best crack repair is the one you never have to make, and the #1 way to prevent cracks from forming in the first place is to control moisture, because moisture is at the root of the vast majority of wall and foundation crack problems in American homes. Start with your gutters and downspouts. This sounds almost too simple, but clogged or misdirected gutters are responsible for an enormous amount of foundation and wall damage across the country. When your gutters overflow, water pours down right next to your foundation, soaks into the soil, and creates exactly the kind of uneven soil saturation that causes your foundation to shift. Clean your gutters every spring and fall. Make sure your downspouts are directing water at least 6 feet away from your home's foundation. Next, check your grading, the slope of the ground around your home. The soil should slope away from your house, not toward it. If the ground around your foundation is flat or slopes inward, water pools against your foundation every time it rains. Regrading the soil around your foundation is a relatively inexpensive fix that can prevent thousands of dollars in damage. Inside your home, invest in a good quality dehumidifier for your basement. Basements are naturally humid, and that humidity seeps into your walls, weakens the structure, and promotes mold growth over time. Keeping your basement humidity below 50% makes an enormous difference. Caulk around your windows and doors every few years. The caulk around exterior openings is your first line of defense against water infiltration. When it cracks and pulls away, water gets in. Fresh caulk takes about an hour to apply and can last 5 years or more. And finally, monitor your cracks. If you've already filled a crack in your home, mark the ends of it with a pencil and note the date. Check it every few months. If the crack is not growing, your repair is holding and the underlying issue has stabilized. If the crack continues to grow beyond your marks, that's your signal to call a structural professional before the problem gets worse. We're almost at the end, but before we wrap up, I want to make sure you know about the one tool that every homeowner over 50 should have in their home repair kit. It costs almost nothing, takes up no space, and it could be the single most important thing between you and a very expensive problem. This is the bonus tip that separates smart homeowners from everyone else. It's called a crack monitor, and it's essentially a small plastic gauge that you would hear over a crack. It has a gridded scale that lets you measure precisely how much the crack is moving, if at all, over time. You can buy a professional crack monitor online for about $10 to $15, or you can make a simple version yourself by gluing 2 pieces of graph paper on either side of the crack and drawing reference lines across the gap with a permanent marker. Either way, the concept is the same. You are giving yourself data, real, measurable information about whether your crack is stable or progressing. Check your monitor every 30 days and note any changes. A crack that stays the same size for 3 to 6 months is almost certainly stable and safe to repair cosmetically. A crack that keeps widening or lengthening is telling you that the underlying movement has not stopped, and you need to find out why before spending money on surface repairs. This one simple habit, monitoring your cracks, could be the difference between a $50 DIY fix and a $50,000 structural repair. It takes 5 minutes a month. There is absolutely no reason not to do it. So let's bring it all together. You started this video knowing that a crack in your wall might be a problem. Now you know exactly what kind of problem it is, what's causing it, and precisely how to fix it, whether it's drywall, concrete, brick, or plaster. You know how to stop cracks before they start, how to monitor the ones you have, and how to tell the difference between a cosmetic issue and a structural emergency. Robert from Ohio, the man I told you about at the beginning, he learned all of this the hard way. $14,000 later, he told me he wished someone had shown him this information 30 years ago when he first moved into that house. You don't have to make the same mistake. You have this information right now, today, and you can act on it. Your home is likely the biggest investment of your life. It deserves your attention. It deserves your care, and it will reward you for decades to come if you treat it right. Now, before you close out this video, I want to plant a seed in your mind about something we're going to cover next time, because wall cracks are just the beginning of what your home might be trying to tell you. Have you ever noticed your floors feeling slightly bouncy or uneven when you walk across them, or heard strange creaking sounds that seem to come from deep inside your walls or ceiling? Those sounds and sensations are not your house settling. Those are warning signs of something far more serious, and if left unchecked, they can compromise the entire structural integrity of your home. In our next video, we're going to cover sagging floors, structural creaking, and the hidden damage that could be lurking beneath your feet right now, and the easy ways to inspect and address it before it becomes a catastrophe. If you don't want to miss that, and trust me, you don't, hit that subscribe button right now and turn on the bell notification so you're the first to know the moment that video goes live. And if this video helped you today, please share it with a friend, a family member, or a neighbor who owns a home, because this is exactly the kind of information that saves people thousands of dollars, and it only helps if it reaches them before the damage does. Thank you for watching. Take care of your home, and it will take care of you.